Hey guys, we are back. My name is Ryan and I am a man with lupus. In today's video, I want to talk a little bit about the journey that I've been on as I've learned to live with a condition that I didn't even know was lupus until very, very recently. So let's go ahead and get into the video. Ever since I was a very young kid, let's say 10, 12, somewhere around that range, I've had a bunch of really, really strange ailments. Some of it started when I got what I thought to be acne. I had really bad cystic scarring acne that would run down my back. Now, the acne on my back led to terrible scarring. We had issues with, bleeding through my clothes and things like that. And at one point, my dad said to me, and I will never forget this because I was upset about what was going on with my back, and I also had it on my face, and it was kind of in that butterfly pattern, but it just looked so much like acne that nobody picked up on it. And my dad said to me, "There is something wrong inside of your body. There's something wrong in your blood." And he said he didn't know how to help or what to do, but he said there is something wrong with you. And now, all these years later, I can completely understand what he was picking up on. He did not know how to help me or what to do with that, but he did pick up on it, and I think that was important because it goes to show that a lot of these ailments do go as far back as 10 or 12 years old for me. Now, at the time of filming here, I'm 39 years old, so you could do the math. It's been a long time. Those early ailments, the skin rashes and things like that, I just kind of pushed through them. I didn't think much of them. I just dealt with them. I kind of hid them because they were embarrassing, and that was how I handled that situation. Around the age of 13 or so, I started having some issues in my spine where I would just get these really bad pains. It would happen sometimes if I would be outside working, shoveling or something like that, and it would actually drop me to the ground. And then I would get back up and I would have to kind of stretch it out and kind of get back, and it would hurt, and I would just kind of go on with my day and it would feel a little better, and then I would forget about it, and a couple months later something would happen again. Now, it was around the same time that I started having really bad issues with depression and anxiety. And on top of that, there were some major insomnia sleep issues where I was unable to sleep. Fall asleep was a major issue, and staying asleep was another major issue. And so I was having these really bad bouts of insomnia, depression, and anxiety. And it was around that time when I started struggling terribly with what I thought to be depression. And this is a really important part of my story because I was told that if you wake up and you're tired and you're exhausted and you don't feel like getting out of bed and facing the world is just too hard, that you're depressed. And so for the rest of the time between 12 or 13 and now, every time I wake up in the morning, which is every morning, I wake up and I am exhausted like I've never felt before. Every inch of my body feels heavy and bloated and weighted. I can't stand up. And then the pain, which we'll go on to talk about a little bit later, is excruciating. The inability to use my hands, the inability to stand on my feet for the first hour of my day, knees locking up, joints locking up, all of these things were happening later on in life, but at the early point when I was 12 or 13, it just started with this real severe fatigue, and I thought it was depression. The doctors thought it was depression. They treated me for depression. And to be honest, nothing ever seemed to help. I just always remained depressed. I do believe there is a piece of depression and anxiety in this whole thing, but I do believe that for many years I was thinking that the morning fatigue was depression, and it wasn't. It was fatigue from lupus. And I know that now because I've been tracking my lupus symptoms for about 3 to 6 months, and I'm starting to pick up on these things, and I'm relating them back to what I used to know. And it turns out that I don't know that I'm waking up depressed. I think I'm waking up and lupus is kicking my ass, and that is the truth. Now, as a young kid with no help, this was very confusing and it was very difficult. I was told I was lazy. I was told I was no good. I was told I need to get up and do this. I was told you're weak. You need to buck up and get stronger and just deal with it, figure it out. I don't know. This is how everybody feels. Deal with it. That kind of stuff. And I did, because I had no other information and I didn't know any better. And that really led down a very miserable path for me. And I'm going to go into something that is kind of personal, but I feel it is vital for me to share here. There was a number of years in my life from about 13 to 25 where I drank very heavily. And it was not normal drinking like normal people do. It was not coming home at night and having a drink so you could relax. It was waking up and drinking so that I would feel okay enough to push through my day. And a lot of people can't quite grasp that. The fact that when I woke up in the morning, I was unable to get up and go even to college and school and do homework because I was so drained and in so much pain and so exhausted. And what fixed that was a drink. And I would wake up and I would drink. And I would drink throughout the day. And I would drink throughout the night. And anytime stuff hurt, I would drink. Anytime I needed energy, I would drink. And of course, over the years, that turned into something not very good either. And I ended up having to stop drinking because it wasn't working anymore. And then I was drinking for no reason other than drinking. And that was a big piece of my story for a long time. I thought that I was a depressed, anxious, alcohol-using, bad person. That's what I thought. And I thought that there was just something morally, inherently defective about me. And now all these years later, as I'm finding out what it is that I actually have, lupus, that wasn't the case. And I wasn't that person. I wasn't what I thought. I was just a young kid who was very sick, trying to find any way he could to be a productive member of society. My drinking, it was not something where I would drink and go party and crash cars and be crazy. I'm not saying that those things would never happen from drinking. I'm just saying that was not my intent. My intent was always to get up and go to work, get up, go to school, do well, be able to function in life, and I could never, ever do that. And so, of course, once I gave up the alcohol, I was back to nothing, and I struggled very badly with what I thought to be depression again. I would wake up in the morning, throw up if I tried to eat, sick to my stomach. Fatigue, it's the craziest thing to explain to you, but if you have it, you know. You just wake up and everything is dark, everything is gloomy, everything is heavy. You go to stand up and you can't do it, and you just plop into your chairs, and it's like you're carrying another person on your back, and you're winded and you're hurting, and there's nothing that you can do about it, and it's absolutely miserable. And so for about 12 or 15 years now, I started having some symptoms that I couldn't ignore. And those symptoms started in the form of pain. And the pain was in that same spot in my lower back that hurt when I was a child. I thought that I had injured it. But now I'm thinking this was just lupus attacking some of those joints. And I went into the doctor about 12, 13 years ago complaining of really kind of bad back pain in my lower back. I was unable to bend down to pick the toilet seat up. I was unable to really do anything that required me to bend over. It was like my back was just stiff, and if I would bend at all, it would just lose all its strength and drop. And, you know, of course we thought, well, it's core issues, so let's go do core exercises and things like that. And just nothing happened. Nothing got better. It just stayed the same, and then actually it continued to get worse progressively. And so from 12 years ago to about 5 years ago, I would say the pain and the fatigue and everything was a fairly severe nuisance. It was painful and unbearable at times. The fatigue was brutal at times. But up until about 5 years ago, I could manage through it. I would push through it, and I would be a crabby, mean ass. I would be rude, I would be snappy, I would be short because I was hurting and in pain, and it's not the man I wanted to be, but it is the man I was. And unfortunately, I had to deal with, changing that about myself as much as I can, and that continues to be something that I deal with today. But it got to be about 5 years ago when I was doing a normal exercise regimen where I would wake up in the morning and I would just basically do floor exercises, push-ups, sit-ups, burpees, few things. Then I would go jog a mile, come back, and I always had trouble breathing. I could never take full breaths, so running was always hard, and there's some of those symptoms in there too. But it was about 5 or 6 years ago when I got to the point where I just absolutely could not do the exercises anymore. It hurt so bad. Every sit-up, every push-up, every moment of my day after doing those exercises, my joints hurt so bad. Even my muscles in some occasions hurt terribly. And I gave up exercising because I just couldn't seem to do it. From that point, of course, I started gaining a little weight. I started getting a little out of shape, and those things weren't good, but it didn't go terribly awry. It just, I wasn't in the greatest of shape. And then we would have, of course, the continuation of the pain. And the pain moved from my lower back into my hips and my sciatic nerve. And then it moved down into my feet. And then it moved up into my shoulders. And then it moved into my upper back, middle back, my neck. Now it's into my knees, my elbows. And the worst of it all for me personally has been my hands. About a year ago, I woke up one morning and my hands were stuck absolutely stiff. And I could not move them. And if I moved them at all, tears would just roll out of my eyes. There are countless mornings when I wake up and I have to put my face in a pillow and just scream and flex my fingers because they hurt like they were all... I just tell people it feels like every single knuckle was busted and twisted yesterday, and now I'm waking up swollen and broken today trying to use my hands, and it is brutal, and it is every day. I also started having a bunch of symptoms where I will go numb. I will go numb in my arms, and it's a feeling that just makes me, I shake my hands because I don't like the feeling. It's a very odd, strange feeling, and my hands all the way up to my shoulders will go completely numb. Almost every single night when I sleep, from my shoulders to my fingertips are either numb or it is completely pins and needles all the way down. My back pain, my neck pain, my shoulder pain is horrendous. And by horrendous, I wake up every morning in a level 9 pain. If I didn't know what was going on with me, I would go to the ER. If I saw somebody else in the condition I was in, a healthy person feeling the way I felt, I would take them to the ER immediately. Something major is wrong. The pain in my joints has been the biggest driving factor for me to really go and figure out what's wrong. And that is essentially what started to lead us into the testing and the diagnosis phase. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Over the last 5 years, as this has progressed, I have had multiple other symptoms. I have always had really difficult time being in the sun. It makes me sick. It makes me just feel completely disoriented and messed up. And so I have learned that I just stay out of the sun. My family always laughs and makes fun of me because we'll be at the beach or the river and I've got a sweatshirt on and a hat and I'm underneath an umbrella. But if I don't do those things, I will be absolutely destroyed. And on top of that, there have been a whole bunch of other symptoms, and I've been tracking these all in a list for some time, and I'd like to kind of go over a bunch of those symptoms and explain to you how they affected me and what happened. At this point in my life, I'm unable to really hold down a job. You would look at me, as most people do, and think that I'm a normal, healthy person. The problem is, when I get up and I get going, it only takes a couple of hours, and I develop a migraine, and my eyes get blurry, and I get nauseous and sick to my stomach, and probably 70% of the time I end up with a fever. And so I'm only able really to put in any kind of major effort for a few hours a day before I start to feel very sick. Sometimes I will even get so sick just from putting in, if let's say I put in a full day's worth of work and then I go to the gym, there have been times where I've been laid up for 2 days where I couldn't get out of my bed after doing that. And it is just delirious, detached fatigue and disassociation and pain and fever and sweating and just all of these symptoms where there's no way that I could go and just hold down a job. And so basically, I've continued to try to run my online business to the best of my ability. And right now, I have a very good friend who has offered me a part-time job doing some graphic design kind of work just on the side. So I can kind of start paying for some of these doctor bills and things. But really what I wanted to talk about for a couple minutes here are some of the strange symptoms that I've run into. And so I'm going to take a look at my notes here, and I just want to read through these, and I'm going to explain to you, what they were, when they happened, and what that felt like. Some of these may not even be related to lupus. This is all a process that I'm learning about. So if you hear anything and you want to tell me about it, down below, please do so. If you have an opinion or an experience on this, please let me know down below what you think. I tried to be as inclusive with my symptoms as I could so that the doctors would have something to work about or work with. But anyway, let's get into it. So of course I had this cystic acne on my back, scarring, and that was from 15 to about 32 years old. And actually right now I do have a little bit of it going on, which is strange. It hasn't happened in a few years. I've always had struggles with my joints, my knees and my elbows, tendinitis and things like that. It seemed like there's just something a little off in my joints. It's felt that way ever since I was about 12, 13 years old. I have always been nauseated and sick in the morning, and I have always said my entire life that I feel exhausted in the morning. I feel like I wake up having run a marathon in my sleep. And so that has been a major issue for me. I have dry mouth all of the time. I'm struggling with it. I'm constantly having to step out of scene here just to take a drink because I can't even get through a few minutes without my mouth being dry. Now recently, over the last year or so, we've noticed that my blood pressure has been up. That I know is something that is associated with lupus, and that's been something that I've been seeing. I've had terrible metal allergies my whole life. I don't know if any of you can relate to that, but like I have to wear pure gold. I cannot wear stainless steel or surgical steel covered in gold. None of that will work. I will break out in terrible rashes. Like I talked about, the sun exposure issues, easy sunburns, and the sun just absolutely destroys me. Constipation, this has been a weird one, and I didn't really think this was associated with lupus until recently when I was in the middle of a flare, and I had a very, very severe case of constipation where it was like 3 days laying on the bathroom floor, enemas, meds, everything we could do. It was almost time to go to the hospital. And once I talked to my doctors a little bit, they did say that people with lupus can run into this issue, and so it's been okay since then. I think that was part of the lupus flare itself. Light sensitive. I always have to wear sunglasses outside. It's very hard for me to, even filming in here, this is about as bright as I can stand it. As far as my hair, thinned out a little bit. I don't know that necessarily matters or is lupus, but I did have some thinning in my early 20s. Now, one of the bigger symptoms that I run into on a regular basis is sciatic nerve pain. It is so bad. I always tell my wife, I feel like my butt is like 4 times the size of what it really is. It just feels huge and swollen, and it's like somebody blew a balloon up in there, and that pressure, it hurts terribly. And that has been one of the major ailments that I've been running into over the last few years, especially as pain is concerned, and it makes it very difficult to sleep. On top of that, since about 2016, I started to develop these really brutal pains in my shoulder joints. It feels very similar to my fingers. It feels like they're broken and swollen. And I mean, just like right there, it starts to hurt. And I'm somebody who works out regularly. I'm somebody who is technically physically fit, but there's movements I can't even hardly do it hurts so bad just to raise my arm up like that. And so these shoulder pains have become a major, major issue. I have something that I refer to as phantom pains. Now, that might not be the right term, but these were some of actually the earlier symptoms around 10 years ago that I was running into, and I could not understand what was going on. And it feels as though somebody is inside of a part of my body. It's usually my arms or my legs. It's not usually my chest or my torso or anything. It's usually arms, legs, and it feels like somebody is just shoving an ice pick in one spot, and it lasts anywhere from 2 to 15 seconds, and I just literally have to bite down and grip it and just shake and hold it until it's done. These pains randomly pop up throughout the day. Sometimes I won't have them for months and months at a time. Sometimes I'll have them every day, multiple times a day, and they are excruciating. I do not know exactly what those are. I do not know that they're associated with lupus, but it is a major symptom that I've had. Another thing I've been struggling with lately is misreading my reach. Let's say I'll have a water bottle here and I'll go to grab it and I knock it over. I'm not reaching fully. I'm not getting to where I need to be. And I don't know exactly what's causing that, but it is something that I've noticed. Now, I've been getting random bouts of nausea and these migraines for about a year now. It usually happens early in the afternoon. It usually happens when I'm working, when I'm just up and being physical in any way, shape, or form, and all of a sudden I get this, I call it a queasy headache. It makes me a little sick, and it's just a strange, bubbly, weird feeling up in the front of my head, and my wife thinks they're migraines. I'm not really sure, but sometimes they come on and they're associated with a fever. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes the headaches come on and they're associated with nausea, and sometimes they're not, and sometimes I have it all. I really can't make sense of that one, but that has been a major, major issue for the last 6 months. I also have always dealt with very excessive sweating. I'm not talking like, oh yeah, you sweat a lot. I'm talking working out, I put my head down and it's a stream just dripping off of me. It's always been something that I've had and struggled with. And I notice when I'm flaring in lupus, I will just soak through the bed sheets. I will just sweat profusely. And of course, when I have fevers, there's that issue too. Now, back in 2020, because of some of this, we did some body imaging, and we did a nuclear scan, bone scan, and we did find a bunch of bone density issues within my hips. And a bunch of arthritis within my hips and lower back. And so I believe that is probably caused by lupus, and probably caused because I've been sitting here for 20 years trying to figure this out while this stuff is chewing me apart. It's a strange feeling to know that there's something wrong with you and nobody can pinpoint it, and it's been a very, very difficult journey for me. As a kid, I used to struggle terribly with swollen knees. I would get water and things on my knees, just my big joints, knees and elbows, but mainly my knees, and they would swell up and get full of fluid. I don't know for sure if that is lupus related or not, but it was something that I dealt with. Now, I have another little one that I just learned is actually very much lupus related, and I am allergic to something called Bactrim. Bactrim, which is an antibiotic. And Bactrim is a sulfonamide, which is something that lupus patients find is not conducive for them to be taking. It does not help them at all. When I take a Bactrim, within 15 minutes, I have a 103 fever. I'm shaking, I'm dropping things, I'm dizzy, I'm falling down, I'm sweating, I'm sick, I have diarrhea. I am dying within 15 minutes of taking a Bactrim. And so if you have lupus, that's something I've learned. Bactrim is not something you should be taking. Another set of symptoms that I've been struggling with is this pain right in my sternum. I get it more in the evening. It does happen during the day sometimes, but I have always said it's hard for me to take a full breath. I have always struggled running because I can't take a full breath. It hurts, it burns, it gets to this point where there's so much pain, and it's at about 80% capacity. But that breathtaking pain is different from this sternum pain that I get, and I notice when I'm flaring, I notice when my hands are really killing me, when I have all these other symptoms, that symptom pops up, and it feels like there is something like an elephant just stepping on it, and your chest is about to break. And you take a breath, and it's hard to breathe and push past it because just the stretch hurts. And so that's another symptom that I have been dealing with. My eyesight gets randomly blurry, and I have a couple things on my eyes that we're not sure are related to lupus at all, but I am struggling with some blurry vision, and so that's something we're looking into. But on top of that, I have this condition that was diagnosed as vertigo, but it's not vertigo. It is something where just out of nowhere, out of the blue, to me what it looks like is like I faceplant. If you take your head and just do that, that is what I see, except it does it over and over and over and over and over and extremely fast. And while it's happening, if I ask you to look at my eyes, you will see both of them up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Now, this is part of why I was unable to get my lupus diagnosis the first time I went to the rheumatologist. He did believe I had markers, symptoms, it looked like lupus. However, he said there were some neurological concerns, and that was one of them. This has not happened to me in many years, but just recently it has happened mildly on 2 or 3 different occasions, and so it's something we're going to have to look into. I'm not sure if maybe I could have some kind of neuropsychiatric lupus and that's affecting this or what. I guess that's something that we'll learn about and find out soon. Now, of course, insomnia, numbness in the arms, my fingers and hands locking up, weight fluctuations. That's another thing. I will fluctuate. I've fluctuated as much as 19 pounds over a weekend. Think about that. I came into the weekend at 180 on Friday night, and Sunday morning I got on the scale and I was 199. And then within a week I was back down to 180. And so I do have these crazy weight fluctuations going on that are a little outside of what a normal person would experience. And I would consider that to be a lupus symptom. However, I'm not sure why or what's going on with that. Maybe brain fog, trouble swallowing, pain everywhere, fatigue. I mean, these are all the symptoms that I have dealt with and lived with for, like I said, nearly 20 years now. Where I'm at today, I am doing my best to stay afloat financially. It's been very difficult. Like I said, I just put in a few hours of work and I start to get sick. And so it's very hard for me to continue to work every day, day in, day out when I'm just sick. And so anytime I can get a break, anytime the lupus just kind of settles a little, I get as much work done as I can. I try to make videos. I try to do things, anything I can do to promote what I'm doing and who I am and what I have going on, and so it's been very difficult. I'm married. I'm happily married. I love my wife dearly. She's been very supportive. Of course, there have been some struggles as well. That's something that's not uncommon, and that's a topic that I'm going to cover later on this channel as well, is, how do you deal with relationships when somebody is chronically ill like this? I'm fortunate that even if in the moment my wife makes a mistake or gets cranky or doesn't understand, that she's always available to me to say, hey, I need to sit down with you and clear this up, and she will, and we do, and we work through it. And I love her more than anything, and I'm so happy that she's on my side and my team. Sometimes I find myself feeling very bad that she has to deal with what I'm stuck dealing with. I do have a son. He's 5 years old. I also have a daughter who's 18, and she's off in college now, and she's doing great. But having a 5-year-old son is very difficult. Getting down and playing all the time is difficult. He doesn't understand Daddy doesn't feel good when it looks like I feel fine, and I can understand how confusing that must be for him. On top of that, I've been noticing that he will start saying he doesn't feel good. And so one of the newer things that I'm having to work on is not talking about being sick in front of him, because I don't want him to start to think that that's a thing. But yeah, so as of right now, basically I've got all of my laboratory tests back, because you can see a lot of red, everything here. And I'm about to go on December 28th up to Dr. Who in Flagstaff, and my Avise panel tests here, based on what we talked about last time, I don't think there's going to be a concern with whether or not I have lupus. I have systemic lupus, and it's going to probably be time for us to start looking into my vital organs and see, has anything been damaged, is anything going on, and hopefully we can start to get this a little bit under control, because at this point, like I said, my finances are struggling. I'm struggling just to live a normal daily productive life. So basically, what's going to happen going forward is on the 28th, I will do a video. I'll probably do some kind of vlog post where I'll take you guys with up to the doctor's office. I'll kind of fill you in on what I learned, what happened. Did I, get the diagnosis? Did I end up with multiple diagnoses? What's going on? And I'll continue to do vlog posts and things like that. But really what I want to do is I want to start opening up dialogue. So please jump in the comments section down below. Tell me your story. Who are you? What are you doing here? What would you like me to talk about? Is there anything you're confused about with lupus? I spent a long time owning a healthcare facility, and I was the administrator of that healthcare facility. And so I'm familiar with medical records, reading records, understanding policies and state statutes and things like that. Very difficult, boring things to read. I find those, they come easy to me. And so a lot of times I can do a lot of research that other people just don't have the time, patience, or really the ability to do, because it's hard to read in that format. So I would like to do a lot of videos talking about whatever it is you guys want me to talk about. So please jump down below and let me know, what you'd like to see. I think the next video that I'm going to do, the official produced video like this that I'm going to do, will probably be on the diagnosis piece of this and the process that I had to go through to get diagnosed with lupus, because it was very difficult. As of right here, right now, today, I'm okay. I'm doing all right. My pain is terrible. My fatigue is terrible. I'm blurry as hell today. I can't quite see things right. I'm a little slow, brain fog. Finding words can be difficult. Losing words can be difficult. There's a whole bunch of edits that you guys don't get to see that had to take place because I would just lose myself in the middle of sentence. Now, I will be a little bit more raw going forward, and I will show those things to you guys when it's more of the vlog post things. But in these more formal videos, I just try to keep them as clean and nice and professional as I can. So, yeah, that's my story. Essentially, ever since I was a little kid, I've been struggling terribly, and I'm 39 years old, and we just now may have found at least what's wrong with me. And I don't know what the treatment's going to look like, or if it's going to help, or how much it's going to help, or any of that, but I sure hope that it just helps a little, because if I could just take part of the pain and part of the fatigue away, I think it would absolutely change my life. And I told my doctor this the other day, I'm almost scared for treatment because I don't even remember what it's like to be me anymore. I don't remember what it's like to wake up and just be me. I wake up and all I think about is this pain and this hurt and this fatigue and this depression and this sickness. That's all that's on my mind ever. And so it will be a very strange thing for me if these treatments work or help at all. But hopefully it's all for the best. And yeah, I look forward to many more videos with you guys. Again, jump down below. Let me know what you'd like to see me make content on. This has kind of just been my lupus story, and I hope that helps you guys understand or relate to maybe my situation. And yeah, so again, my name's Ryan. I'm a man with lupus, and we'll see you next time.